The stumps speak. They tell us stories of how the land used to be. Just like our ancestors hand down tales of how it all once was. More than 10,000 years ago, the Ktunaxa native people followed retreating glaciers north to the Kootenay region of the interior Pacific Northwest. As the land evolved and changed, they passed down stories. One of them is about the pileated woodpecker. Long, long ago, the animals and the birds had a meeting. It was decided to create human beings to help look after the land. Three woodpecker brothers, Yamakpa, Makka, and Kopak, were sent to Earth to make sure that the humans could survive.
Yamakpa, the pileated woodpecker. For many of us, he is simply the source of a cartoon character. But as we learn from the Ktunaxa, he is much more. He is Yamakpa, a central hero in the Ktunaxa creation myth. Yamakpa. His hammering tattoo is a reminder of the beginning of the world. His wing beat in the morning coolness is a warning and a welcome to the deep and misty origins of the forest. In the ancient myths of the Ktunaxa, Yamakpa was sent to check out the land, to see if it was suitable for human beings. Now, in the 1990s, I'm helping Penny Ohanjanian to check out the land, to see what is left that is suitable for Yamakpa.
When I started to map out remaining pileated woodpecker habitats in the East Kootenay, Arthur Toomey and I began to discover how the fate of Yamakpa is so inextricably linked with the fate of the forest. All life is connected, from the birds in the sky to the fungi in the soil. The pileated, or pileated, which means crested, is one of the largest woodpeckers in the world, only slightly smaller than the ill-fated ivory-billed woodpecker that is now virtually extinct because of the destruction of its habitat, the old-growth forests of the southeastern United States. Pileated woodpeckers live in wooded areas across North America, and they depend on mature and old-growth forests to provide them with the best nesting habitat. When Yamakpa first came to Earth, old-growth forests covered much more of the continent than they do today. The spread of humans across North America has resulted in the loss of most of these forests. It is only since old-growth forests have become threatened and scarce that we are beginning to appreciate the value of these ancient systems.
Many of us equate old growth with the enormous trees in the coastal rainforests. But old growth occurs in the interior as well. An old-growth forest is characterized by trees of uneven ages, including ancient giants, many species of which can reach ages of 300 years and ranging beyond 1,000. An old-growth forest has large standing dead trees that are vital to wildlife for food sites, shelter, and nesting. Large fallen trees that gradually decay become habitat for an increasing number of plants and other organisms. In fact, many trees contain more living matter when they decay than they do when standing alive, and the nutrients formed during this process become a valuable addition to the complex forest soil. Fallen trees act as nurse logs, providing a healthy environment for seedlings. In creeks and streams, fallen trees provide shelter for fish, nourishment for watershed inhabitants, and help to improve the quality of the water. An old-growth forest is a combination of life and decay, where everything is recycled to maintain a continued abundance of interdependent life.
The pileated woodpecker is a large bird and therefore needs large diameter trees for nesting, and big trees don't grow overnight. These small diameter logs are from the second rotation of a forest. The old growth was logged about 60 years earlier. To imagine the difference in tree sizes between the previously logged old growth and the currently logged young forest, it is only necessary to compare the sizes of stumps left behind. Because pileated nests are located high above the ground, and because of the large size of the nest cavity, a large diameter nesting tree is required. This tree was too small. It broke off at the nest site. Holes are also used as roosting spaces for sleeping and resting. But it's not only the size of the tree that matters. The location is important as well. The tree shouldn't be out in the open, but rather under the protective cover of a forest to hide the nest from predators. A classic nesting site is an old dead tree with a broken top hidden deep within the forest. A broken top could indicate weakened wood conditions, easier carving for the woodpecker.
The kind of tree is also important. Woodpeckers prefer tree species that rot from the inside, for then they only have to break through the outer shell to get to easy excavating. This giant western larch tree is prime habitat for wildlife. The fungal conchs indicate that extensive heart rot has taken place. But trees of this size are becoming rare, old-growth western larch stands are seriously endangered. Their thick bark has protected them from many forest fires over the centuries, but it can't protect them from chainsaws. This tiny ecological reserve in the East Kootenay is one of a very few areas set aside to protect these ancient giants. Larch trees, which can grow to be well over 500 years old, are the only native conifers that lose their needles over winter. Because of this, some people think they're dead and destroy living larches for firewood. But they're far from dead.
The large poplars in riverside systems that are often cleared for agriculture or urban development are also extremely valuable nesting habitat. Not only for woodpeckers, but for songbirds, wood ducks, and wildlife in general. This is Kopuk, the little one in the Ktunaxa myth, the sapsucker. It drills lines of holes in the bark of trees and returns from time to time to drink the oozing sap and to eat the insects that are attracted to it. This is Yamakpa's little brother, Mukka, the flicker. It often nests in abandoned nest holes. Yamakpa does more than play a central role in an important myth. He also plays a critical role in the ecological chain. Pileatids usually excavate a new nest hole every year, leaving behind cavities that are important to other species that are unable to excavate their own nests. Only the pileated, for instance, makes holes large enough for most cavity nesting duck species. This owl also depends on Yamakpa's excavating skills, as do kestrels, squirrels, pine martens, and bats.
But this is only the beginning of a fascinating cycle involving trees, woodpeckers, squirrels, and even mushrooms. It starts with woodpeckers providing homes for squirrels. Squirrels then dig up and eat mushrooms, some of which only fruit underground and are dependent on the squirrel to carry their spores to new locations. These mushrooms are vital to the forest in that they help trees to absorb water, minerals, and other nutrients. We see only the fruiting body of a mushroom above the ground, but underneath, mushrooms form a carpet-like growth that will in many cases stimulate trees to produce new root tips and strengthen their immune system. Trees grow faster and live longer. So when we look carefully, we find that the forest depends on the woodpecker just as the woodpecker depends on the forest. There are never-ending lessons to be learned by studying old-growth forests. No matter how much we learn, there will always be more to be discovered. An old-growth forest remains a reservoir of knowledge, a living laboratory to which the progress of managed forests can be compared.
A study in 1972 showed woodpeckers to be the main cause of spruce beetle mortality during the winter. And it isn't just because woodpeckers eat individual beetles. They also prey on them indirectly. When the ground is covered by snow, pileatids use their chisel-like beaks to hammer into trees, ripping apart the wood fibers in search of food, and exposing the beetle larvae to other predators and to the killing cold of winter. As they fly from tree to tree, woodpeckers also spread different kinds of viruses that are capable of infecting whole colonies of beetles. The summer months give Yamakpa a chance to sample a wide variety of fruits and insects that are easily obtainable. Many types of berries, caterpillars, moths, and a delicious assortment of other insects are a welcome addition to his diet. But his favorite food is carpenter ants. The pileated makes small holes in fallen logs, dead roots, and stumps, then uses his long, sticky tongue to reach the ant burrows. An early researcher found 2,600 carpenter ants in the stomach of one woodpecker. If left unchecked by natural predators, insects could cause serious damage to the forest.
But the natural rhythm and balance of the forest is changing. Yamakpa's habitat becomes more and more restricted as more and more big trees are removed by logging. In a study done in northwestern Montana, pileated woodpeckers were considered common in the 1920s, but rare by 1975. During this period, the old-growth western larch Douglas fir forests of the area were extensively logged. Even though pileated woodpeckers are often seen, they are not necessarily common. They have such large territories, up to 5 square kilometers, that the same pair may be sighted over and over again throughout the day in many different locations. Almost every valley and watershed now has some kind of access road, making standing dead trees or snags vulnerable to firewood users. Most people are unaware of the damage they are doing to the ecosystem when they cut down large snags for firewood. But in fact, snags are now classified as an endangered habitat in parts of British Columbia. If the right habitat is not available, the pileated woodpecker will try other alternatives, such as power poles. But power poles are not good sites because they're out in the open, exposing nests to possible attack by predators or disturbance by humans.
In the world today, it is no longer a challenge to tame nature. Today, the challenge is how to protect and work with nature, and we can do that by becoming knowledgeable about it and voicing our concern. Yamakpa's habitat can be protected in many ways. Road closures help to shield wildlife and their habitat from the ever-increasing onslaught of civilization. Public awareness programs have been started to encourage firewood cutters to recognize and protect wildlife trees. In some areas where standing dead trees have all been cut for firewood, artificial snags are being created by blowing the tops off of living trees. In this case, a hole is drilled into the tree and filled with a small charge of explosive. Simple protection provided by parks and wilderness areas will not suffice for pileated woodpeckers. Most reserves in the Kootenays, for example, are located at elevations too high for pileateds to nest in. So a place must be found for them in the low elevation forests, and in most areas, that means finding a place for them in the so-called working forest, where logging takes place.
Research on the effects of different logging and silvicultural practices is being undertaken. There are options such as light selection cutting, keeping certain species intact, identifying younger stands of suitable nesting trees to be allowed to grow into the 22nd century, and adopting a 200 to 300 year rotation period over specified areas. Options like these could allow trees to grow big enough for pileated woodpeckers to nest in, and would also maintain a sense of continuity in an increasingly fragmented forest. Detailed inventories have to be updated to identify the rapidly dwindling areas of old growth still left on the continent. And an overall policy should be adopted to protect and conserve old growth forests before they're all gone.
How many years does it take to grow a 700-year-old tree? How many centuries does it take to grow a mature forest? Continued research leads to new understanding, and the pileated's needs are becoming clearer. But knowing what these needs are has importance beyond that of simply maintaining this single woodpecker species. It is a measure of the health of our forests, leading to the pileated woodpecker being recognized as a management indicator species. In other words, the Forest Service is using Yamakpa to check out the land. It is as though the Yamakpa myth has become a reality. Now it is our turn. Our turn to take advantage of an opportunity to protect our ancient forests. Not only for the intricate web of life that depends on them, but for ourselves and for our descendants. There is still life for woodpecker. There is still life for our planet. Yamakpa reminds us.
Min kanal kat na amak tinulpalen takopko yamakpal at sila katsinuppaksisne nismakin silkawakal pesken mulil nas amak at kinshal sukul hakalwuskilmil kapes kapsin isnsi kitsha yamak